Two guys in the dark.
This is a story about an ex-friend of mine. I tried to help him through his terrifying obsession with a girl, to no avail. I've always been the type to observe everything from a safe distance. Seldom am I ever brought into drama, but people come to me for advice a lot. I've given my best and most sound counseling to friends, but this particular guy that I knew was beyond any form of help. This guy, we'll just call him Andy, made no point to cover up his psycho. He was mumbling out loud to himself in public, then being physically harmful. He was quite the basket case. It all started with me knowing very little about this guy, because I just kept to myself. When it came to gym class, when we would walk around the track, I would just have my headphones in most of the time. When a girl began walking around the track with him and talking with him, I instantly noticed as I could overhear them talking about some bands that I enjoyed as well. I'm not really sure how I wound up in this group, but I believe that one of them made a move to hang out with me, possibly my hilarious gay friend. This group consisted of Andy, the psycho, Krista, Mac, two other girls apart from myself. We had our subgroups. Krista happened to be heavily into anime, while Mac and I would get into deep conversations about mysteries of life. Andy, on the other hand, mostly sat and listened to Krista. He had an obvious fixation on her, and by the middle of the school year, everyone, including Krista, knew how desperate he was for her. Krista had stated that she did not date, as her father was very protective of her, and to be honest, she kind of gave off a lesbian vibe. Anyways, despite the efforts to pull away from him, Andy was practically on top of her at all times, forcing hugs she awkwardly yanked away from, making it known that he wanted her bad. One occasion, she happened to block his number after realizing that it was a mistake giving it to him. He managed to steal her phone, then unblock the number. Upon the confrontation, he had admitted to unblocking his twin brother's number on her phone. Andy absolutely hated his twin, hated being compared to him, which would be expected, as his brother was the charismatic one, with lots of friends. Yet Andy said on multiple occasions that he wished that his brother was dead, and joked about the joyful thought of ending his life. I didn't judge harshly at first, but my friend Mac did. He let Andy know what a creep he was, and how horrifying his thoughts were. While Krista and Andy were talking one day, he would just set his seat right beside her. He was telling her not to talk to his brother, and somewhere in this conversation, in the school library, he slapped her for not listening to him. I'll never forget the fear and anger that was on her face. From then on, even after this awkward apology, Krista just let him know that he should stay away from her. Sadly, he had taken to talking to me all along, as I had been a soundboard, whether I cared about it or not. Every day on the bus, it was all about Krista. Some days he would just chant her name, get lost in his thoughts about her. I try to drop subtle hints that she's not interested in him, or at the very least to treat her like a normal person and just give her some space. Apart from his desire for her, he was the most desperate guy that I had ever met. He would ask out every single girl that he met and spoke to for about a day. He would message me all over Facebook about he needed a girlfriend. And luckily I had been in a relationship for about 4 years, and he knew that he couldn't have me. That still wouldn't stop him from hitting on me in such small ways that I didn't realize at first, including a near proposal. He just typed my name. When I asked him what was up, he said that you're beautiful, but you look exactly like someone from my past. Makes me very sad remembering her every time I look at you. I miss her so much. He had a knack for making people uncomfortable. Some days I couldn't help but ignore him. Krista evaded him till high school, but Andy's obsession only became more intensifying. I genuinely thought that he would be helped, and I could get through to him while keeping my own distance. But he just kept setting off too many alarms. Firstly, he was training for some entry into a military camp of sorts, and was discharged for reasons in relation to his mental state. though he wouldn't get too far into the subject. Secondly, every day he wrote me at weird times, early in the morning, just to tell me, "Help, I can't stop thinking about her. I'm madly in love with her." This was clearly not true, as he made moves on me and many other girls in the time that he had known her. He had made remarks that he self-harmed himself, just to get her off of his mind, but nothing happened to work. He'd also somehow convinced himself that she wanted him, and would frequent the grocery store that she went to, just so he could say hi, though she kept her head down and just ignored him. One morning, as I was browsing social media, he happened to message me the usual. "I need her. I love her so much. Help me. I'm going nuts." I tried to help him analyze his feelings, and then come to his senses, that he was fine, and just to let her be. I thought, if he's hitting on any other girls, but claiming that he's in love with her, let's see what he says to this. I typed out, "Tell me, what do you love about her?" I cannot believe what he sent me. It was the most ridiculous and degrading message that I have ever read about somebody. She has small tits. I absolutely adore that about her. I dream of taking her virginity, and I don't think she would mind how small I happen to be, if you know what I mean. Smiley face. I felt like I read some psycho's personal diary. Truthfully, this girl was pretty tiny, 18 years old, not even 110 pounds, which made me fear that he'd prey on her. He was very short, but she appeared vulnerable and smaller than him. I was on my last straw playing therapist for this dude who clearly had no damn idea that he was scaring this girl. Up to the last time that we happened to speak, the worst thing that he requested of me was to get a hold of her new number somehow for him and attempt to lure her in to see him once again. He was frustrated with my decline. He pleaded with me to help him obtain her address. Needless to say, that last night that we spoke, I told him that I wish him well, told him that I would not assist him in terrorizing my friend. I blocked him. It's been longer than a year since then. I just hope that he got the help that he needed, and I hope for her sake that he hasn't found out where she lives by now. There was a guy that I knew who was a firefighter, and he was really serious about it. He started out forest firefighting and went to school to be a city firefighter. He was truly in love with this job. A little too much, unfortunately. Houses around our area began catching on fire for no clear reason. Eventually they found out that it was arson, but they didn't know who it was. The last of these arsons resulted in a death. An old man that lived in the home couldn't get out of bed on his own and was trapped in his room. Eventually it was found out that this guy had been starting these fires in order to do his job and then put them out. He was convicted of manslaughter and arson, spent a few years, maybe about 4 or 5, in jail, but he's out now. I don't feel like the punishment fit the crime for this one. Not sure where he is or what he happens to be doing, but I've certainly seen him walking free. Back in 1997, there was a guy that we called White John that hung around with us occasionally. He was a black guy, but tried very hard to behave the way that he thought white people did. All his friends happened to be white. One day he stopped coming around us. We figured he decided to start spending all his time with the Asian girlfriend in Manhattan that he always talked about. A couple of days later, he's on every major news station in New York and on the front page of every newspaper. Turns out he was a serial rapist that targeted Asian women, and the girlfriend that he always spoke about had actually broken up with him several months before. He had been stalking her and doing things with her and other Asian girls after the breakup. He was caught after he did all this and then killed the ex-girlfriend. We were shocked to hear this. There was never any indication that he was capable of such terrible things. I would sit and go over every interaction that I ever had with him to see if there were ever any signs. I just didn't see any of them. It rattled me pretty badly when I thought all of the times that I had been alone with him, walking to the store, or whatever. Ever since then, I examine the people that I'm friends with, looking for any warning signs that there might be. It still affects me to this day. I didn't know this guy too well, but my best friend knew him a lot more than I did. They hung out a few times, got pretty flirty with each other. He was a convention goer, as are me and my friends. We happened to attend anime gaming conventions every once in a while. I saw him at a couple of cons because we also worked for a regular vendor. He was a good-looking guy. He was Asian, with the whole J-Rock look, so he was pretty popular among a lot of the con girls. He was pretty strange, though. I didn't give it any thought until I realized that he compulsively lied, that he started sending off red flags, because he very much reminded me of someone else that I knew who was manipulative and abusive. My friend hung out with him, one-on-one a few times, liked him on some kind of level. They were flirty, but nothing ever came of it. Not a few months later, after a convention, we hear that this guy was arrested, and sure enough, there are news articles about it to prove it. He held his girlfriend captive for over 2 months, beat her with sticks and a crowbar, broke her bones, forced her to kneel on grains of rice, forced her to cut herself with a knife. She happened to have lost hearing in one of her ears. I never met this girlfriend, to my knowledge at least. I wish I could find the follow-up to this. I have no idea if he's still in jail or not. A lot of people in the convention community in our area were shocked to hear about this, especially seeing as how he happened to seem like a really cool dude. My best friend Bella and I haven't seen each other for about a year, because Bella happens to have a baby. Bella has texted me saying that she is in my area. She wanted to spend some time with me. We met up around 12 p.m. in the afternoon. She brought her daughter along. We walked around for hours and played at the park. Around 7, we went to McDonald's for supper. Bella and I decided to take the night as a best friends night. Bella had texted her parents to see if they would babysit. They happened to have said yes. This is where the story gets pretty creepy. Bella and I dropped her daughter off at her parents', got in the car, and then went to the next town over for the fireworks and watched the stars, and then looked down at the entire city. Bella and I had been sitting there till about 5 a.m. We happened to hear footsteps from behind us. As we looked behind us, nothing was there, other than the forest right behind us. We immediately got in the car. Bella turned on her headlights, and we saw this man who was dressed in black, with a white t-shirt covered in blood. We screamed at the top of our lungs to the point where we felt sick. Just before Bella turned the headlights off, we saw a gun in the man's left hand. Bella stepped on the gas and ran the man over. We got out, and the man was knocked out, or so we thought. I decided to go run and grab the gun with my sweater, so his fingerprints would be the only ones on it. No sooner did I pick it up and turn around, the man happened to grab my leg. I managed to escape and get back to the car and tell Bella to just drive. We made it to the highway. I called the cops as Bella was driving. We made it to town, got to the police station, gave them the gun to see if the man was in the system. Turns out he was charged with murder in first degree. That escaped from prison about 5 months prior. The police later found the man hiding in the woods, in a bridge tunnel, where they discovered 6 bodies of men and women. The man was then charged and arrested. I'm so horrified for myself and Bella, as Bella happens to have a 1-year-old daughter and is a single mother. The father happens to be unknown. We could have been this man's next victim for all we know. I'm so glad that we are safe. Bella and I are still close to this day. We spend every single day together since that day. His name was Mr. Nobody. He started out as the person that kids would blame if one of them forgot to flush the toilet. And then suddenly his mythology evolved. For the record, all of this was conceived by 3 of my kids, who at the time were 6, 5, and 3 years old. Mr. Nobody had no eyes, no teeth, no tongue, no nose. He didn't wear pants. Leave the used toilet paper between his butt so that you can tell where he is by his smell. He doesn't wear a shirt, but has a pocket cut with his skin where he keeps the key to our house. He can be invisible whenever he wanted to. They claim that he had a beard since he was a baby. He bites off his fingernails, then drips blood where he walks. Thankfully, It's been a few years since Mr. Nobody has been in our house, but I was definitely a little creeped out when the children told me all of this. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.